Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of Politiki, focusing on day 3 of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. It has been an explosive morning with the former Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas when he was led in his evidence in chief. Key things coming out. He had no faith in the Hawks investigating this matter. He also talked about how his life was threatened by one of the Gupta brothers when he declined the offer to become finance minister. And of course, he then revealed, or confirmed rather, that it was because of the nuclear deal that then finance minister Nhlanhla was fired by President Jacob Zuma. Let's take a listen to this clip from his evidence in chief.
Interested in being a Minister of Finance, and if he thought I would work with them, he would have to tell me precisely what it is that they do. At that point, Mr. Zuma and Mr. Hlongwane also stood up. I was angry at the stage, and he was also a bit emotional. He was also emotional. He said something along the lines of, I quote, "Look, do you know who we are dealing with?" He was agitated and said, "You think it is illegal?" He said that everything that they do is legal and that they create jobs and contribute to the economy. He said that at the moment, we, which I understood again to be the Gupta family, earn about 6 billion from the fiscus through various entities, including Eskom, Transnet, and government departments. He said that they wanted to increase this amount to 8 billion, and that they thought I could be helpful in this regard.
That there, of course, is the former Deputy Finance Minister, Mcebisi Jonas, making startling revelations on day 3 of the Judicial Commission of investigation that is investigating state capture allegations. With me are my colleagues, Jeanette, Chabalala, legal reporter, and of course News24's assistant editor. Let me start with you, Jeanette, and I'm going to divide this in 3 portions. And the first portion being when Mcebisi Jonas was detailing that meeting in October between himself, one of the Gupta brothers, Duduzane Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma's son, and of course controversial businessman Fana Hlongwane, and in that meeting he was threatened.
Yes, Mahlatse, today was amazing. It was an exciting day. What he said was that on the 23rd of October, he met with Duduzane Zuma at a hotel in Rosebank, and soon afterwards, they went to the Gupta compound in Saxonwold, Johannesburg, and then Fana Hlongwane was there already. And then he had a meeting with one of the Gupta brothers. He said AJ, but he cannot rule out the fact that it might have been Rajesh, but he only noticed that through media reports that it might have been AJ Gupta. So what he said, I love the way he described the meeting, saying that he was the person talking, and while Duduzane and Hlongwane sat silently, he spoke like a radio.
Yes, that's the phrase he actually used. Yeah.
Yes, he said he spoke like a radio, and he was sort of a bully in a way. And then he offered him that 600 million, and when he refused, he threatened to kill him. So yes.
And I mean, Pieter, from that testimony, you could see where the power was. It was Hlongwane and Duduzane who made the initial attempts or the initial arrangements for that meeting. But at the end, when it was happening, it was at the Gupta mansion in Saxonwold, and it was AJ Gupta who did all the talking.
That's a remarkable morning's testimony. It was fascinating to listen to Mcebisi Jonas actually telling his own words what happened. Now, you referred to that meeting. 3 things that struck me. Duduzane Zuma came across as very weak. He came across as someone that's just there to do the Gupta's bidding. And when push came to shove, he faded into the background and AJ Gupta did all the talking. Second thing which was remarkable, AJ Gupta saying, "We control everything. Intelligence, Hawks, NPA, all of it. The old man does everything."
Yes, we control former President Jacob Zuma.
the old man does anything we tell him to do. I mean, it's just incredible. And then to close it off with, when he refused the offer, like Jeanette said, when he rebuffed the attempts to recruit him into cabinet, AJ Gupta said, if any news or if you leak any information around this meeting, we're going to kill you. It was the arrogance was so brazen, it was remarkable to listen to.
And of course, to the fact that Fana Tlongwane, who Mcebisi Jonas said, it was somebody that I knew quite well. And Duduzane to sit there silently with no rebuttal, with no attempt to actually diffuse what was obviously a very escalating situation. You were talking earlier, Jeanette, that basically Mcebisi Jonas was saying that AJ was a man who was about to punch him.
Yeah, exactly. And Mahlatse, I was saying this in the morning during our live crossing, that the case against Duduzane Zuma, which is linked to this corruption case, it was opened in 2016, and I like the fact that he mentioned during his testimony that the Hawks prepared a statement for him to sign. It was a false statement for him to sign, and he refused to sign the statement. The Hawks believed that he did not have a case; it was a DA case. So that, for me, now I know. Now
You've connected the dots.
Now I've connected the dots. That it took 2016, it was opened in 2016, and only now Duduzane appears in court in 2018. But now the state is asking for a lengthy postponement to actually deal with the matter.
That was quite damning on our Hawks, to say that it was Benning Meza who made the call to Mcebisi Jonas, saying you must expect a call from us so that we can actually take a statement. We are investigating. On the first hand, you think progress, but then after he had even confirmed publicly that they offered him this bribe, this inducement, they still wanted him to lie. They wanted to kill the case, Pieter.
It's terrible to hear from someone at cabinet level, someone like of Jonas's stature, that he said he had no confidence in the criminal justice system. He didn't trust the Hawks. He didn't trust all the institutions that was built up since 1994 to ensure that the rule of law is paramount, and that the Hawks, under Burning and Tlemeza's direction, and another major general, which name escapes me now, forced him to sign a statement which he didn't want to. They wanted this to go away. So it just goes to show that everything that the media wrote over the last couple of years, all the suspicions we had about how the criminal justice system has been compromised, was true.
Ironically, also confirming what AJ Gupta said when he said we control the NPA,
exactly.
We actually control the Hawks. But there's also one thing that came out of his testimony when he said that he decided to entrust the details of this meeting with people that he trusted. And those people that he trusted was Nhlanhla Nene and also Pravin Gordhan. And of course, that statement where they believed that the officers at Treasury were actually being monitored.
It's one of these narratives that I find very fascinating. I look forward to hear more of it. It's the assault on Treasury. Now, Treasury was the final bastion, the last frontier for state capturers to overrun. It was almost like a castle on the hill that they were charging and challenging. And people like Nene and Jonas and later on Pravin Gordhan tried very hard to protect Treasury. Now, it's shocking to hear that when Jonas wanted to share what happened with him at Saxonwold, that him and Nene met on the balcony at Treasury, outside the building, because they were fearful that their offices were being bugged. He spoke about the open hostility in cabinet and from the president towards Treasury while they were trying to prevent a fiscal crisis. You must remember, and he spoke about this, and let's talk about nuclear. They were pushing for the nuclear deal.
Yes.
And Jonas was talking about the moral imperative on them. South Africa couldn't afford this.
And basically concerned about the debt that future generations would incur. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that it's quite interesting that when Des van Rooyen was hired and Mcebisi asked the former president, how is he going to do the job? And he said, well, I'll help him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it then spoke to the fact that Mcebisi Jonas himself did not have faith in the appointment of Des van Rooyen at that time.
And justifiably so. You remember those 4 days between that Wednesday and the Saturday, or the Thursday and the Sunday, when markets reacted really strongly to Des van Rooyen. I remember all of us scampering around, who is Des van Rooyen? No one knew who Des van Rooyen was. He was a backbencher in the ANC. He was in the finance committee, but he wasn't a prominent politician at all. It's come out in the wash since, that he was pushed there by the Guptas. And we'll probably probably come to that testimony still, but then the two advisors that were dispatched from regiments and the Gupta line companies to join Desmond van Rooyen there. So it was very clear that he had no faith.
Of course, Mcebisi Jonas had said to AJ, I want clear directive in terms of what exactly do you want me to do once I'm in that position of finance minister. But also they had a plan, and their plan was the DG must go, the chief procurement officer must go, the DDG must go, and then we will provide you with our own advisors. That was in essence capturing the state.
And they also told him as well that we work with other people as well, you know, your Lynn Brown and Brian Molefe.
And they said that those were the people that are protected.
The arrogance was unbelievable. Now, the people that they wanted to remove, the DG, the very respected Lungisa Fuzile, Ishmael Momoniat, who's DDG for tax. You know, the Guptas, we know they've got tax issues. Kenneth Brown, who's the chief procurement officer now, such an important office. We earlier this week, we had Vili Matambulo, who's the acting chief procurement officer, who explained how important that office is. Government spends 840 billion a year on goods and services. You know, if you can get a chunk of that, you're home free.
Of course, from Mcebisi Jonas, the confirmation that the Guptas felt that they already made 6 billion from the state, and what they wanted to do was increase that to 8 billion rand. Obviously, this was just about the money.
Yeah.
It sounded like a criminal enterprise, Jeanette. I mean, they said, you know, their returns, and, you know, they've been making so much out of the state. It sounded like they were talking about a normal company, you know,
And
trying to invest or trying to increase their productivity.
agree with you.
This was a criminal enterprise.
But
They
they-
fleeced the state.
But they also told him that everything that we do is legal.
Yes,
Creating jobs.
we are creating jobs, we are growing the economy.
In the week that ANN7 closed, ironically.
Yes, and then as we wrap up, do we think, of course, we've already had Lynn Brown saying that she wanted her lawyers to be here because she suspected that she would be implicated in some of the evidence. Could we expect that witness list to grow? The fact that Brian Molefe has already been mentioned.
Yeah, we're expecting the witness list to grow. Lynn Brown has to give her side of the story. Brian Molefe as well, if they do want to give their side of the story. But the witness list definitely is going to grow.
Well, you'd want Tina Joemat-Pettersson, who was Minister of Energy. She needs to come and explain,
Yes.
you know, the build-up around the nuclear energy deal. You know, everyone that was involved around that needs to come and explain, including the ANC, Mahlatse.
I agree with you on the ANC, Pieter, because he's already mentioned that when this happened, one of the people he did speak to was, of course, the Treasurer General then of the ANC, Zweli Mkhize, and it was also Gwede Mantashe, and with his approval, he then released that statement. Does the ANC not have a moral obligation to say, when all of these allegations were now confirmed by their own comrades, what then did they do to save the state?
Mahlatse, there's no doubt that they've got an absolute moral and ethical obligation, and could be a legal obligation as well, to come and testify before this commission. It should almost be a DRC kind of process. The ANC cannot distance itself from this. The ANC cannot distance itself from Mcebisi Jonas's testimony. No, they can't distance themselves from former President Jacob Zuma. Zizi Kodwa's name was mentioned. He was one of the people that spoke to Mcebisi Jonas. But you remember the statement that Zizi issued after the Financial Times and the Sunday Times stories, panning it, dismissing it, saying there's no inkling that the ANC has been captured by one single family. We're seeing this to be untrue.
Oh, we're going to have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we've ran out of time. That was our assistant editor for News24, Pieter du Toit, and our legal reporter, Jeanette Chabalala, who, of course, are here with us as we give you blow-by-blow coverage of this inquiry into allegations of state capture. An explosive morning from Mcebisi Jonas. We are expecting him to return to the stand as they wrap up his evidence in chief, but of course, we're not expecting that he will be cross-examined by the lawyers of those who are implicated as yet. They have to apply to Justice Raymond Zondo, and then once that permission has been granted, then Mcebisi Jonas would return for that cross-examination. That's it for now. My name is Mahlatse.